This year, Kenichi is 40, but still tirelessly immersed in work to the point of fainting. Kenichi's life feels like a very monotonous loop, but suddenly he is reincarnated into another world because he has watched anime. So he knows. Some types of systems will appear. So he tried it out, and surprisingly, it actually appeared. At this moment, he finally believes that he has been reincarnated. He wonders what kind of system it is that doesn't display any HP, not even skills or spells. Everything is missing. Instead, the system left Kenichi a shopping website where all the items are things he usually buys. Besides that, there is an item box to store items, which looks very convenient. At this point, Kenichi's stomach is growling, and he has taken some leftover money. He is looking for something to fill his stomach, but the current balance isn't enough to buy anything. He sees some weeds that might be sellable. However, weeds have no value, so he wonders how he could sell them. There are only trees and rocks around, and nothing valuable. Kenichi suddenly notices the sword and the armor on the skeleton, wondering why the dead person didn't take these items with them, so he decides to take them. Kenichi sells them and buys some bread and milk. The system works very quickly, money exchanged for goods right at his mouth. But the conscience of a human being makes Kenichi properly bury the skeleton afterward. After that, Kenichi buys a bicycle to leave this forest. He rides calmly as if he were on a picnic. Even though he is in a different world, he still gets to eat his favorite curry. When Kenichi takes a break, it is also when night falls. This is the time when monsters hunt the most. The smell of Kenichi's curry quickly attracts them, which makes Kenichi panic and rush to buy something to fight back. Kenichi buys some smoke bombs to scare them off, but they aren't afraid. They become even scarier. So Kenichi buys a slingshot and uses it to shoot pebbles at the monsters. He manages to take down a few, but then runs away very quickly. In the middle of the night, the next morning, after waking up, Kenichi finds himself near the edge of the forest. Kenichi buys a ladder and a pair of binoculars to observe and sees a city. At this point, Kenichi's balance is almost gone, so he thinks when he gets there, he will look for a bit of money. Just then, a young man rides a horse past him. Seeing Kenichi soaked like a dog, he offers to take Kenichi to the city, introducing himself as Fuji. Along with him is a girl. Fuji introduces her as his friend, an artist named Fuzu. Looking at Kenichi's outfit, she finds it a bit strange and asks what Kenichi is doing in the city. Kenichi replies that he wants to do some business there. However, Fuzu clearly sees that Kenichi is empty-handed, and she realizes he is someone without any possessions. Hearing this, Kenichi is quite surprised. The wandering woman sings a few lines about the drizzling rain. There, Fuzu clearly saw that Kenichi was empty-handed. He immediately understood that Kenichi was the owner of the male genitalia. Hearing this, Kenichi was very surprised by the woman who was wandering, reciting a few lines in the drizzling rain. The men arrived with a gust of wind and raindrops following Kenichi's footsteps. Kenichi hoped to find out where he was headed and what had led him there. Kenichi's journey would soon begin, right now and right here. After arriving to express his gratitude, Kenichi helped Fuji unload the goods and handed him a little something. As a thank you, when he opened it, he was surprised because it was a tip, immediately feeling fear since Kenichi was new and didn't know about the types of spices here. There was an organization called Bacopa that had a monopoly on them, and Kenichi's business was like that. If caught, it would be punished immediately, but this is a private transaction. So Fuji will still pay because their merchants absolutely do not accept anything for free. Kenichi received Fuji's money after they said goodbye. Kenichi went to explore this place until evening. Kenichi arrived at an inn to rest, using the money Fuji just gave him. To book a room, the receptionist asked Kenichi to sign a confirmation. But at this moment, Kenichi just remembered that he doesn't know the language in this world. The girl saw Kenichi dressed strangely and wondered what Kenichi was doing in this city. Kenichi answered that he came to do business, but she said wanting to do business without knowing how to read and write is bad already. So she did. A simple addition, but Kenichi answered very quickly, so Kenichi can calculate. Regarding writing, the girl asked for Kenichi's name and wrote it down on paper. She also introduced herself as Azalea. Kenichi asked Azalea to teach him how to write in return. Kenichi would give her some candy as payment. It seems Azalea likes sweet candy, so she was very pleased with the box of candy that Kenichi gifted her. Just one piece made her melt, and that night, Azalea quickly taught Kenichi how to write. Kenichi found it not too difficult. It looked similar to the way Kannada is written in Japan, so Kenichi's learning went very quickly. Azalea thought now Kenichi could become a merchant, and she also began to consider the possibility of becoming Kenichi's lover. Kenichi sat down to draw a portrait of Azalea and showed it to her. At that moment, she had no more hesitation. Kenichi gave her candy while drawing her portrait, making her fall in love. But she also wanted to eat the lollipop of Kenichi. The next morning, Kenichi went to register as a merchant. He could handle all the paperwork. Then Kenichi needed to pay 1 silver coin to register, and 1 silver coin is equivalent to nearly 50,000 yen. After paying, where would Kenichi get the capital to do business? So Kenichi chose the method of installment payments. Fortunately, the manager agreed. Then she told Kenichi to wait a moment and took out a stick, which is considered the guild ID. When trading, Kenichi just needs to place it in a visible spot. It looked exactly like Fuji's. After that, Kenichi began to choose items to start doing business. Passing by a vendor's stall, the shop owner introduced the types of fresh, affordable fruits. They looked strange, so Kenichi bought one of each to try throughout the day. Kenichi still had no ideas, so he returned to the inn for a rest. The next morning, Kenichi bought all the tools to open a small shop. Seeing Kenichi had a very unique clip, Azalea wanted to buy a few because the clips. He decided to open a small shop and noticed that Kenichi had a clip that looked very unique, so Azalea wanted to buy a few because the clips she usually used were made from thin sticks split in half, which were easy to break. This one looked sturdier, so she thought Kenichi should sell this. Kenichi found this idea reasonable because buying in the system was cheap, but selling here could yield profits. After that, Kenichi went to a secluded place next to an old lady to use as a location. When the old lady saw Kenichi's male genitalia, she was also very surprised. Kenichi displayed 2 knives for sale. They arrived at a deserted spot next to an old woman from Hanjiang to set up their location. When she saw Kenichi with his merchandise, she was quite surprised. Kenichi offered to sell her 2 knives and a pile of plates, mostly hooks. The shopkeeper next to her asked for the price. Kenichi offered a friendly price of 5 coins each. So she opened her stall for Kenichi to buy 5. She was indeed a lucky cat, because shortly after, many customers came to buy hair clips. Unexpectedly, they sold very well, and she also earned a little money thanks to the customers. Therefore, she was very grateful to Kenichi. But Kenichi thought if his clips sold well, then surely someone would come to compete. At that moment, a young boy arrived at the stall to look at the knives. He noticed the boy was well dressed. Kenichi thought he must be someone of high status. The boy said he wanted to see and try the knife, which looked shiny. The young man seemed to like it and asked the price. Kenichi quoted it at 2 gold coins. Though it was very expensive, it was indeed beautiful, so the price was reasonable. However, he still wasn't quite satisfied and wanted one that was bigger in his hand, as it was too small. Kenichi searched online but didn't find any like that, but he did find one that seemed suitable for the young man. It was a hunting sword. The boy's eyes lit up. Surely he liked it, but its price was quite steep, like the sword. The young man began to hesitate. Kenichi noticed it was a bit expensive, but he had to entice those who could pay. Suddenly, a nose sniffed at Kenichi and licked him. Kenichi was startled and almost fell off his chair. He quickly calmed down and asked what they wanted to buy. One of them jumped onto the roof and took the silver sheet that Kenichi used to shield from the rain and Sunday. They said they wanted to buy this. Kenichi intended to say that it wasn't for sale, but after thinking it over, he realized that this sheet was easy to sell, so he decided to sell it for 3 coins each. They wanted to take 3 sheets. Hearing that, Kenichi said buying 3 sheets would get a discount of 1 coin, leaving only 8 coins total. But they only had 2 coins on hand. Nevertheless, it still had a greater value than coins, so Kenichi calculated that way. They handed Kenichi 2 square coins, and Kenichi would give back 2 coins as change. Since the beastmen were very poor at calculations, they thought Kenichi was trying to take their money, so they were ready to grab it. At that moment, the young man spoke up, saying Kenichi had calculated correctly. They seemed to be scared of him and left. The boy agreed to buy Kenichi's sword, so today Kenichi made a profit. Kenichi returned to stay for 5 days at the inn and went up to rest. A girl had taken an interest in Kenichi's clip and wanted to send a maid to buy more, but the girl changed her mind and wanted to sell it in her own company because their slogan was, "Don't miss the opportunity." So she went to find her father to add, changed her mind and wanted to sell it in her company because their slogan was, "Don't miss the opportunity." So she went to find her father to add this product to the company since there was no water heater here. Kenichi was considering buying a round bathtub to heat it up and bathe. What could be more reasonable? But Kenichi needed a reliable product. But after a few days, he still hadn't figured out the operating principle of the system. Kenichi didn't care and just wanted to live leisurely. At the same time, there was a little girl hiding in the forest, praying to God to let her eat her fill every day. Yesterday morning was similar to this morning, except today, Kenichi brought in a few jewelry samples for. The girl is hiding in the forest and praying to God for enough food every day, just like yesterday morning. Today is a bit different because Kenichi has added a few jewelry samples. For the ladies, even though it's not ruby or diamond, it definitely holds value in this world. It might impress some girl. The street vendor nearby thinks it looks very beautiful and wants to get some. Unfortunately, Kenichi can't reveal it because he bought all these things online. At this moment, the maid who bought a hairpin yesterday comes back today to buy 100 of them, which surprises Kenichi. If you have money, you can get it right away. While waiting for Kenichi to pick up the hairpin, she is attracted by some jewelry. Kenichi tells her to feel free to try it on and see if it suits her. Because it's just crystal, the price is friendly. The maid has reserved it and said she would buy it when she returns. The life of an uncle just goes by smoothly like that. Kenichi sells while chilling. At this moment, the beastmen from yesterday come by with a fierce vibe, making Kenichi fear they are here for revenge. He smells something strange on himself, and the small one confirms that he has a spice scent. Hearing that, the beastmen plead with Kenichi to sell them some spice. Kenichi feels very awkward. Luckily, the vendor next to him spoke up for Kenichi, saying that if they were caught by the spice traders, they would be in big trouble. Upon hearing this, the beastman starts to tremble, but they really want spice for cooking, so they don't hesitate to kneel down and plead with Kenichi. The people around, curious about the story, also urge Kenichi because he is already over 40 this year. He can't resist them, seeing that they look pitiful. So Kenichi whispers to them that even though he can't sell them spice, he will treat them to spice dishes. The beastmen hear that, and are as happy as if they had a harvest. For safety, the cooking location will be outside the city, and seeing that they seem happy, the vendor also wants to go along. Without hesitation, they carry Kenichi in joy. Kenichi has prepared the necessary ingredients, including some vegetables they have never seen before. He guarantees they will love it. Kenichi also catches a few fish and begins to cook. It doesn't take long before the aroma of the dish wafts through the air. Kenichi is excited like he's just been given candy. As soon as they take a bite, they immediately have to eat a second piece because it's too delicious for them. Just having spices makes everything taste good. The vendor also never expected that one day she would hold bowls and dishes like nobles, but they are just stainless steel. The beastmen see the dish is excellent, but still feel something is missing. They know, it's missing beer. Seeing them like this, she tells them they are a bit demanding. But since such a day comes rarely, Kenichi tells them to eat and drink freely, as long as anyone to overhear this. It turned out they were doing things that Kenichi's youth hadn't done, which was to have fun. At this moment, they had the opportunity to get to know each other. The wild girl named Miyali also introduced herself as Niakeru, Anello, and Anji. After that, they went to the lake to bathe together. Kenichi even invested in soap to make them smell nice while having fun. They all ended up sleeping on the grass. Miyali climbed up to sleep with Kenichi, which made for a peaceful night. However, Kenichi's overnight stay outside was discovered by the lioness, Azalea. She was clearly sulking because she hadn't had the chance to hang out with Kenichi yet. Kenichi said there were no girls, but he forgot to wipe his mouth, and she still found a few strands of hair stuck to Kenichi's shirt. He even went over to brush them off as if to appease her with sweet words. There are a few strands of hair stuck to Kenichi's shirt, moving on to brush off like someone else's sweet-talking. But for someone who loves chasing girls, it's just fleeting because I've been single for so long. I've gotten used to it. Kenichi is still making the usual sales. The maid from yesterday came back today, and she even brought her mistress along to look for something. Kenichi just said women aren't important, but his eyes are still glued to the girl's chest. Kenichi quickly snapped back to reality to sell just as he said. The maid brought money to buy a necklace. The young lady guessed it was quartz from the outside, but its appearance was no different from a diamond. It was explained that it was just polished. The young lady asked Kenichi if there were any other samples. So Kenichi took out a few more samples. When she saw them fall out of the items, she was very surprised. Kenichi hoped she could keep his secret. The young lady really wanted to talk privately with Kenichi. She introduced herself as Miller, the daughter of the owner of Malow Trading Company. It may be a bit abrupt, but she wanted Kenichi to follow her to meet her father, the seller next door. At that moment, he realized she was Malow's daughter. No wonder she looked familiar, but he couldn't place her. She told him that Kenichi's company was the biggest company. In Dahlia, Mr. Malow was also a man of good character and well-loved by many. Being connected with a large enterprise gives you opportunities to develop, so why wouldn't Kenichi go? This was Kenichi's first time. He had the opportunity to talk to nobles, so even riding in a carriage was very novel. On the way, they showed Kenichi some hair clips made by craftsmen, but they weren't very well finished because the clips Kenichi sold were made by machines. After a while, they arrived at the mansion. Kenichi had never seen a place so big. Miller humbly said that compared to other nobles, it was the smallest. Indeed, that's what nobles are like. After that, Kenichi met Mr. Malow and he was welcomed very warmly. He was very friendly, just as the seller next door said. Kenichi took out some jewelry that piqued his interest. Miller also quietly informed her father about Kenichi. He possessed items that he didn't hide. Thanks to those items, he built up a trading company like it is now. Hearing that, Kenichi felt like he was nothing. He also had those items, but Kenichi only kept them as a reserve. Kenichi was invited here not to talk about this. Kenichi asked what business he wanted to discuss. He always got straight to the point and wanted Kenichi to become a supplier for his company. So he wanted to find a suitable market to sell and gain high profits. If so, Kenichi wondered why he didn't buy cheaper from his place and sell it at a higher price. But they knew if Kenichi found out they did that, that's a foolish thing a trader can do. You have revealed the secret for your company to make high profits. That is, do not be blinded by immediate profits. You might miss opportunities for bigger deals. This definitely means I should switch to business. If Kenichi agrees to the request, he will share 50% of the profits. So Kenichi agreed right away, and they happily collaborated. Kenichi earned tens of thousands from items that cost only a few thousand. That's already a great deal. Both sides benefit. After that, Kenichi signed the contract and traded the products. The first one brought in revenue for Kenichi of over 1 million yen. And Miller was also very interested in it. So, they bought them for 10 gold coins. To help Kenichi understand, I will briefly explain the currency exchange here in the Japanese yen. 1 coin is the smallest unit, equivalent to 1,000 yen. Small silver coins are 5,000, while large silver coins are 50,000. The gold coin is 200,000 yen. Kenichi understands the currency values here. So, 10 gold coins mean Kenichi has exchanged for 2 million yen. She was very excited and even wanted to raise the price, but Kenichi thought that was enough. After returning to the dorm, Kenichi opened the bank account and was astonished because the number of zeros exceeded 8. So Kenichi decided to buy a house and start a relaxing life plan in the other world. The next day, Kenichi went out and found a place to set up a base. Last night, Kenichi told Azalea about this. She thought it was very dangerous outside and that Kenichi shouldn't go. But Kenichi said he wouldn't go too far from the walls. Kenichi began the renovation of his living space, first buying a lawnmower to trim the grass around. However, Kenichi had to use it very sparingly because there was no fuel like gasoline sold here. Buying online was very expensive. Next, Kenichi got a chainsaw to make it easier to cut trees. Kenichi worked so hard that the guards had to pay close attention to see Kenichi work. Luckily, at this time, they hadn't banned deforestation yet. After cutting a few trees, Kenichi wanted to store them in the bed, but the size was too large, so Kenichi had to cut them into pieces to fit. A day's work ended tired. The next morning, Kenichi went to dig up some tree roots, but digging by hand was exhausting. It would be very expensive. Next, Kenichi grabbed a saw to facilitate cutting trees. Kenichi was so focused on working that the guards had to pay close attention to Kenichi. Luckily, they hadn't banned tree cutting yet. After cutting a few trees, Kenichi wanted. He put it in the bed, but it was too big, so Kenichi had to cut it into pieces to fit it in. What a tiring workday. Exhausted, the next morning Kenichi went to dig up some roots. But digging with his hands was tiring enough to want to gasp for air. One chunk like that would take until next year to finish. Kenichi decided to go big and bought an excavator to speed things up. He regretted it after he bought it, because it cost 1.2 million, and it was used, but well, he already bought it. Then Kenichi suddenly realized this excavator runs on diesel, but there's none around here. It can't be that he bought it and won't use it. So Kenichi tried to look for alternatives and found some lamp oil. Although it was super expensive, once you play, you must go all the way. Kenichi bought 3 bottles. However, he didn't pour it right away in case it was active. If it works and it's still broken, wouldn't that cost me $1 million too? So Kenichi decided to experiment with the generator first. After fiddling around for a while, it finally started up. Kenichi immediately plugged in 2 light bulbs to light them up. Then he set aside the work to take a shower. Lately, Kenichi has become a feast for mosquitoes. Kenichi remembered that Azalea once said he should buy some insect-repelling stone, so the next day, Kenichi went to a shop near the market to buy it. The shopkeeper was an old man who looked very much like a wizard. He sold mosquito repellent for 3 coins. Kenichi took out 2 oranges and offered them in exchange, hoping he could get a discount. The man found it strange and wanted to try it, so he decided to lower the price to 2 coins. When Kenichi returned to the stall, he heard from the nearby saleswoman that he was nicknamed the Encyclopedia of Dahlia, so she encouraged Kenichi to befriend him. On a quiet night in the forest, an illegal trade was taking place. A girl with blue hair had been sold and was taken along with her sisters, but on the way, a group of robbers attacked the vehicle, and the one in charge, Saga, was a wanted man, often seen where Kenichi traded the day before. The excavator began operating and cleared some roots in just a moment. After finishing, Kenichi started leveling the ground, and the life Kenichi had always dreamed of. After a moment of cleaning, Kenichi began to flatten the land, and thus the life he always dreamed of was about to be completed. But Kenichi fell into an economic crisis because after finishing with